This is early game, so the numbers are much lower. So the first one is historical culture value. And as you can see, the value is 18. And this is calculated as an average of the historical culture in my empire in the last 25 rounds, so 25 years, and the current loyalty weighted culture production, 17. So maybe first how the 17 is calculated, because we can see loyalty weighted. This is suspicious. So let's check our report, go to regions and population. And here you can see the culture production in each of my regions. And if we sum all those numbers, we have 10, 22 culture production. And if I go back, you can see that we have here 17. And this is because we need to include loyalty, because here you can see each region has a different level of loyalty. And the loyalty determines how many percent of this production you can count to your current culture in this round. So here I can count 83%, so it's 8. Here 62, so probably 1. So we have 8 plus 1, it's 9. Here 82 from 5, so it's 4. And here also 4, so it's 8. And 8 plus 9 is 17. So then if we go here, you can see that our current loyalty weighted culture is 17. That's why loyalty is very important, especially later in the game. If you will have 50 loyalty in each region, you lose half of your culture production. But early game is less visible. And the first number, so 20, is the average of our loyalty weighted culture across last 25 rounds. So then we have average from 20 and 17, which is 18. And that's why the 18 is calculated. And then the 18 is visible in the history section. So here we have 18, here 19, 16, but this is not the historical current culture, but this is the historical culture value. So how we can increase the loyalty? If I will click my region, you can see that the loyalty is 83. That's why I will use 83% from my culture production, so from 10. But please notice, if I will move one population to produce culture, please check loyalty. Loyalty will increase also because welfare helps to compensate unrest. So if there are some slaves that increase unrest, unrest decrease the loyalty, but welfare means that people are happy, they are more educated in the culture section, and they can increase the loyalty. The maximum welfare is 1/3 of your base region loyalty. So in this case, the maximum will be 33, and the amount of welfare that you produce is usually half of the culture production, but I observed that the more population you add, the less you increase the welfare. So if I would add everyone, so it's plus 27, so I should increase the welfare by 13. Here you can see that I increase by 10. It's not linear, but good to know that people in culture also increase loyalty. Okay, so we know how the culture is calculated and how loyalty impacts culture, and how the historical culture value depends on an average, and how to calculate HCV. And now decadence. And this is much more difficult to calculate. So we have 20 decadence this round, and on the bottom you can see how it is calculated, but the calculation here is for the next round in decadence points. So next round I can expect that I will have 24 decadence only from nation size. It means that each region has some accumulated decadence. If we go to culture and decadence, region and population, you can see that each region has some accumulated decadence. And if we sum all of those numbers from each region, there will be something around 20. But of course, there are some roundings, and also there is each round you are losing 10% of the decadence. But in general, the sum of accumulated decadence will reflect the nation size decadence this round, and you can check that next round is 24 because it's always growing, because each region increase the decadence each round. So if we go to our region, you can see that this round we have 2.32 decadence, but we will increase by 0.58. That's why next round we'll have much more decadence because of the nation size. Then can be different sources of decadence increase, like some buildings, but early game mainly nation size determine your decadence grow. And from where this number comes from, this 0.58, because this is very important number. This number reflects how big is your nation, so how many regions do you have. And then there is some formula that converts it to the decadence per turn from nation size. And what is the formula? We can check, because if we go to the reports and we check factions, here you can see how many regions each faction has. And if you check factions with only one region and hover here, you can see 0.28 and those guys 0.28 and those guys also 0.28. So the number of regions determine the decadence from nation size. If we check faction with two regions, it's 0.30, a bit more. Another one also 0.30. So you can see that there is some increase, but not big one. And in my opinion, the formula is simply the number of regions multiplied by 0.025, so 2.5%, and we add to it some fixed amount, so 0.25. And usually with some roundings, we receive exactly that number. Maybe let's check faction with more regions, like for example Saka. They have 12 regions. So if we do the calculation, they should have 0.55 national size. Let's check one of the regions. 0.55, exactly what we calculated. But this region, if you click it, you can see that it has only 0.28 because this region is part of the province. You can see this is a symbol of a province, and the province halves the growth of the decadence in the region. So that's why here we have half of the value with some roundings. And this region, if we click, there is no white flag. So it received the full amount of decadence from nation size. And the important element is that the maximum decadence that you can accumulate in this way is 10 times the nation size. So in this case, it's 5.5. This is the maximum number where we will have some stabilization, and the accumulated decadence will be 5.5 and it will never grow. Because if we know that each round 10% of the decadence is subtracted, so 10% from 5.5 will be 0.55. And if we add the nation size, we will receive 5.5. So there will be no difference. That's why it's quite easy to predict what will be your maximum decadence per region. It will be 10 times the growth of the decadence. Of course, sometimes we also have buildings and some modifiers in a region. Maybe let's find somebody. Yeah, here. They have not only a nation size, but also they have some structures. So in their case, if we assume the nation size and structures grow of decadence, it will be 1.41. So 13.1 will be their maximum decadence in this region, if there will be no change in the next 10 rounds. So in general, in 10 rounds, you can receive the maximum amount. Okay, but the accumulated decadence, as we said, is affecting the decadence from the nation size. And how about the status age penalty and structures? So now let's go back to our first example. Okay, I have loaded the game, and here you can see I have also a decadence from structures. So it simply means from all buildings that are producing decadence. So for example, in our capital, I have some buildings that are adding the decadence. You can see red color, or buildings that are decreasing the decadence each round, like Tribunal, Palace, Library. They are very useful buildings. And you can see that overall, I am decreasing the decadence from structures by minus 1.1. So the net increase is only 0.14. So in the next 10 rounds, my decadence will decrease to 1.14, which is really a low value. But this is my capital here, and this is late game. Here is much worse situation. Still, here the decadence will be around 13, so it will not fluctuate too much. So you know how the decadence from structures is computed and how the decadence from nation size is calculated. So how to calculate status H penalty? And for this one, there is a multiplier from our status H. So if we have a sum of decadence from nation size and structures, which is 1472, and then we will multiply this by our status H, so 32, and then we take 3% of that, and the result is 1413. Let's check. 1413. So this is the exact number that we accumulated from status H of our empire. It means that the longer your empire stays without any changes in this table, the longer you will accumulate the decadence. But the decadence only counts in you are glorious, old, or decadent. So for example, if I would be stable or young, I will not get any status H penalty. That's why it's good from time to time to change the government type this way or this way to reduce the status H by 50%. But there is one hidden information for you, that if you switch here to the objectives, you can see that some of the regions were my objectives. Also, if we go to the nation and click objectives, here you can see all regions that were my objectives. And here are objectives that I can still conquer. So, for example, this one, if I would conquer this region and take this objective, so you can see this is a symbol of objective, then I will get 1 legacy point, but also you will decrease your status H by around 20%. Not exactly, but usually it's something around that number. So taking objectives can be also a strategical decision, because the timing matters in this case. And if you accumulated a big status H, you can, for example, take those 4 objectives in, let's say, few rounds, and then you will decrease by 20%, by 20%, and 20%, another 20%. So taking objectives is also a way to reduce your status H and use it wisely. Regarding objectives, there is one important element. If I go to regions, if you have just conquered regions like here or under pacification, the new region will get increased amount of decadence. So let's go there, and you can see there is no direct percentage that increase decadence, but you inherit a big accumulated decadence. Maybe I can show you it better on a different save. Here I am in a second round of a new game, and I have just conquered a new independent region, and the accumulated decadence is already 3 points. So it's quite a lot for early game. So if I would conquer such undeveloped poor regions that are increasing my decadence, I would soon end up in the bottom of the culture ranking. So it's quite risky to expand too fast. I have played 2 rounds, and you can see that we receive a new objective, and those regions are highlighted in red color. It means that if we capture such regions, we'll take the objective and the decadence will be not increased so much. So let's do it. There is a battle, I can skip it. So we have conquered a new region that is our objective. So you can see this objective own icon, and the decadence is 0.38. So exactly same as our nation size, but the previous region is 3.2. So you can see how big difference is if you conquer objectives versus non-objective regions. To decrease the amount of decadence that you receive each round, would be good to form a province. So if you have some region, and if you hover here name of the province, you can see the color will change and will highlight all regions that belongs to this province. So this is the same as I would select the provinces overlay, but from any other overlay, if you hover the name of the province, you can see. So this province has 8 regions, so I need to own 5 of them to be able to form a province, and half my decadence increases. So let's do it before others will capture the regions. We captured another one, and here the decadence is 3.1 because it was not our objective, but the next one is our objective on the south. So let's go there. Yet another region captured, and the decadence is only 0.43, but please notice that now it's bigger because it's equal our nation size, and our nation size increased because we are increasing the amount of regions that we own. So currently I own 7 regions. That's why we have 0.43 as our decadence from nation size. We need 1 region more, so probably this one. But our army is a bit tired, so I will give them 1 round to recover their supplies. Also, they don't have enough food in the region, so let's go back closer to our regions where I have food. And our last battle, let's skip because we are stronger. Okay, we conquered it, and decadence is quite high, 3.15. We are still growing, but now I am able to form a province. Also, you will see here an icon, create the province. So please notice that currently my decadence per round is 0.45, and I will form a province and wait 1 round. Okay, we have formed a province, and then you can see this nice animation. So province has been formed. Now it belongs to us. I had to move my units north because they declared war and we had some problems. So our units are now here, but we have a province. So now you can see that decadence from nation size is halved, so 0.23. And now over time, the accumulated decadence will decrease to 2.3 across maximum next 10 rounds in each region. So it should help with our overall national decadence. And provinces are very helpful. Now the last one is national modifiers. This is a nationwide modifier. So if I go to the nation panel and to the modifiers, you can see that we are a glorious nation and that we have decadence increased by 35%. That's why we have this modifier visible in the last row, 1030. And it's the percentage if we sum up all other decadences. So national size plus structures plus events plus status age penalty and then 35%, and we'll have more or less 1030. But there are also other national modifiers. For example, let's find some country which is fighting quite long, like Epirus. If you go to the diplomacy and hover their flag, you can see they have very high war weariness, and their decadence is increased by 20%. So the higher the war weariness, the worse the modifiers. Probably on the south we have Carthagene, they have high war readiness, decadence increased by 10%. And they have low war weariness and they have only commerce penalty. So the longer you fight with more enemies, long term, the more expensive it can be in terms of decadence. And last information, here there is a decadence from structures overlay on the map, and the more red it is, the more the region contain decadence from structures. So for example, in this region, 0.8 decadence from structures, and here 0.8, but in the green area there is a negative decadence, so there is a decrease of decadence. The orange one is a bit lower and the purple is really high. So this way you can also quickly realize where are buildings that maybe require your attention. So let's go back to our progress and decadence, and I hope that your ratio will bring you to the first position in the table, and in your current game you will improve your culture and decadence situation. Thank you for watching and see you later.